Holy shit, it's Celestial Crossing. Shit. That's... Load. Load my old one. Yes. Leave it to me. She closes her eyes and begins a low, resonant chanting. Is this for my... I assume this is for my bruise. Well, her tits are coming out whenever she does magic. In the space between two heartbeats, that same static prickle from earlier teases at the surface of my skin. And then all of a sudden, the girls are still screaming, only now they're screaming that Yamaguchi and his friends were fighting each other, and I was apparently an innocent casualty who got hurt when I tried to stop them. I glance over at Nerith, who is once again calmly munching on some yakisoba bread.
Nice job, hero.
Thanks. I blush under the faint praise and try not to cradle my throbbing injury like a wimp. Nerith is still watching, so I gamely pick up a piece of bread and eat. What's gamely?
Maybe you're not a lost cause after all.
Thank you. Huh?
I mean, I thought I had you figured out, but you managed to surprise me. Maybe you do have a little backbone after all.
I've got tons of backbone.
Enough for me to work with, at least.
Are you gonna make me a badass? I want to be a badass. Work with on what? My stomach turns with uneasiness. What kind of scheme is she planning now? As if reading my mind, Nerith rolls her eyes.
Oh, you know, level you up, make you a badass, and maybe help you talk to that girl of yours.
Okay, what
She
the
was pretty
fuck?
cute.
What the fuck? How did she know? How does this game know that I literally just fucking said, make me a badass? What the fuck? Herc? The noise that comes out of my mouth is somewhere between a squeak and a croak. Nerith bursts out laughing, thumping a friendly hand against my back in a way that makes my eyes water.
Helping you become manlier could be a fun way to pass the time. Don't you think, useless?
Stop calling me that. Back to useless, huh? Hero was short-lived. I guess.
Good.
Thanks. She suddenly lets out a huge yawn. She's
now let
tired.
Me sleep.
Yeah.
I've got to get my energy back from that spell, especially if we're going to start training tomorrow.
Training? Decision seemingly made, without any input from me, she settles down at her desk, crossing her arms over the surface before resting her head on them. The thought of her sleeping the rest of the day away peacefully is almost too much to hope for, so I try not to say anything that might change her mind. After lunch, several school administrators show up to take the alleged troublemakers away. Everyone is perfectly convinced that the incident had nothing to do with Nerith. I watch the boys get taken away and wonder for a moment just how powerful her magic is here in the real world. Now that I've seen the full extent, her spells don't look like anything I know from the game. Could she have powers beyond the scope of Celestial Crossing? It's possible. She could probably turn me into a turnip if she wanted, crosses my mind more than once. As I settle in for a blessedly uneventful afternoon. I don't sleep very well the next night. My jaw is so sore and bruised that it gives me a migraine. Jesus Christ. I toss and turn on the couch, trying to find a comfortable position, drifting in and out of sleep until, finally at 4 in the morning, I can't do it anymore. I get up. I get up and make for the bathroom. Soaking in the warm water eases the headache slightly. But I'm still not feeling completely alert when I open the door and find Nerith waiting for me in the hall. She's already dressed in her school uniform, which is odd, but not alarming enough to fully distract me from the throbbing pain behind my eyeballs. You're up early.
Did you expect me to forget my promise?
It takes my foggy brain a minute to catch up, but eventually I remember her words from the previous day. You want to start right now, today? She takes a second to stretch out her shoulders and motions that I should do the same. Her answer doesn't come until she's satisfied that I'm copying her to the best of my ability.
Why not start today?
That's a good question. Probably because you sound like a chain smoker. Gee, Nerith, maybe because my skull feels as if it might be splitting in half the more we do these stupid stretches. I glower at her silently instead of voicing my thoughts out loud. I'm in a bad mood, but I'm not quite suicidal yet. She doesn't know this. She either doesn't notice the strain or doesn't find it worth commenting on.
I figure since you showed you actually had some guts the other day, we could start by working on your form.
That's a good idea. My form?
Don't make me repeat myself, useless. Now copy my
I
stance.
swear, if there's a sexy pose right now. What the hell? That doesn't look like a pose at all. Or a stance. Nerith bends her knees and lowers her center of gravity before raising her fists in front of her. One is slightly higher than the... Fists! This isn't a fist! This right here is not a fist. Clumsily, I mimic her. Yeah, you probably look like this, and she actually has a fist.
You want to turn your hips to the side a bit and bend your knees even more.
Why?
Good. Now hit me.
Sure. I gasp, straightening in surprise. Hit you? You mean throw a punch? I mean right now? I'm not even sure how I should...
Hit me with everything you've got, useless. Now!
Fucking swing. My pounding headache resurfaces and further convinces me that following Nerith's instructions without argument or analysis seems like the best way to go. Mind made up. I screw up my courage and tap my fist against the elf's shoulder, which is the safest looking target I see. Well, no, I want to throw a punch.
What the fuck was that?
The fuck? Yeah, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why did I do that? That wasn't a punch. She mutters something in Elvish, but obligingly comes around to show me what I'm doing wrong. I get the sense that she's giving me credit for attempting the exercise at the very least. We practice for the better part of an hour before I finally have to beg for a break. Nerith nods briskly to my pleasant surprise.
Yeah, you should probably hop in the bath if we want to make it to school on time.
I can't help noticing that she obviously hasn't broken a sweat at all. It's a little insulting how completely unruffled she is, given the amount of effort I put into our session. Still, I can't deny that the workout has made me feel a little better about myself. I rush through my morning routine, and in a show of gratitude, I buy some extra yakisoba bread for Nerith on the way to school. Now what? A week passes, and the two of us fall into an uneasy routine. We go to school together, eat together. In the mornings before the sun is up, Nerith tosses me out of bed for training. It's getting almost frighteningly comfortable. I have to remind myself that things can't stay this way forever. Whoa. For one, casting such extensive spells in the school every day is obviously beginning to strain her magic. She spends longer and longer amounts of time meditating to keep her mana levels high. I can't help worrying that she's reached the limits of what a max-level warlock can do in the real world. She doesn't complain, ever. Nerith is many things, but not a whiner. She gets more and more frustrated. Okay. Uh-oh. All the tantrums I translate to her simply wanting to get back home, and I can't entirely blame her. I'd love to send her back into the game, but the truth I'm confronted with is that I don't have the murkiest idea how to do it. I don't even know where to start looking for an answer. The looming failure makes me feel so guilty that I find myself keeping a steady supply of yakisoba bread on hand. That, and focusing all of my energy into our training, is basically all I'm able to do to keep Nerith from going on a destructive rampage. What's the problem with that, though? The training itself isn't fun per se, but it does satisfy me in a weird way. At this stage it mostly consists of Nerith picking fights with muscular strangers on the street and goading them into fights with me. It kind of works, in the sense that I'm a lot more comfortable getting pissed off at her now. She even lets me argue with her sometimes without threatening to lop my head off.
Good! Now come at me like you actually fucking mean it!
Yeah, punch her in the face. Oh, hell yeah. I rush forward, aim a jab at her face. I get about a hand's length away before she spins at the side, grabbing my wrist and squeezing hard. My eyes water as pain shoots up my arm. With a harsh chuckle, she twists the limb at an angle and takes a short step back. She has me flat on the floor. Yep.
How does it feel getting thrown... What is this even, the 20th time today?
Yeah, probably. She gives a jeering scoff. I understand.
And you call yourself a man. You don't even have the balls to talk to that little girl you like next door.
Okay, don't you dare bring that shit up. I lunge to my feet infuriated, but with barely an effort, Nerith uses my forward momentum to sweep my legs. I go down on my front this time, and the elf wastes no time wrestling me into a headlock.
It's even more pathetic, considering how much she wants you.
I stop struggling immediately. Perhaps worried that she might have accidentally killed me, Nerith jumps off, looking at me quizzically. How do you know? You've never even talked to her.
Elf,
got ears.
idiot.
Yeah, she can hear.
My natural senses are enhanced enough that I can pick up the pheromones of anyone around me.
I guess that doesn't mean she smells through her ears. She was just saying that she's an elf.
And you two put out enough that I gag a little every time you're in the same room.
Whoa. I sit down on the arm of the couch, trying to digest this new information. It's no surprise to hear what my body does around Mika, but her... I don't believe you. I don't think I believe you. Nerith snorts, affronted.
I don't care if you do or not. I can detect pheromones, and that's how I know you secretly liked it the whole time I ran around this apartment with no pants on.
Get fucked. A quick knock at the front door interrupts me.
I'm getting some water.
She flounces away towards the kitchen as I unlock and open the door. I gulp, suddenly shy and flustered to see that it's none other than Mika-chan. She smiles warmly, holding a tray of what appears to be all my favorite foods. No shit. What the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, she felt bad that your dad died or something? Or no, your mom died. And then she's like, oh shit, gotta get that dick. It's impossible to open my mouth. Speaking is unfathomable. What can I possibly say to her now that I know? Something in the air between us shifts, and I can't help thinking that she knows it, too. Her smile turns almost bashful, and she drops her gaze self-consciously to the tray in her hands.
It occurred to me earlier while I was cooking that I haven't seen you in a few days. I got worried that you might not be eating well, so I brought this, hoping I might tempt you.
You tempt me.
To eat, of course. The food.
Oh. Her cheeks get visibly rosier, and I can't help finding this role reversal completely adorable.
Right, so this is...
Ready for round 2 yet?
Whoa! Why are you coming out here? Nerith comes strolling around the kitchen corner, sipping a glass of water casually. She pauses, taking in the scene before her with widened eyes for a second before glancing my way. For my part, I watch Mika with a rising sense of panic as she slowly mouths the word round 2. My gut clenches. I can see her forming the wrong idea about my relationship with Nerith as she takes in how sweaty and disheveled we both are. Shit, this looks bad. There's a moment where I'm almost sure Mika might cry, and I open my mouth to loudly deny everything, when she surprises us all by giggling instead. Still balancing her tray, she playfully nudges me with her elbow the way she always does. I realize suddenly that I'm starting to hate when she does that. Whoa, am I developing... The action screams of artificially created distance, like she's keeping me from getting too close. Like she's trying too hard to convince both of us that we're friends and nothing more.
Finally got a girlfriend, huh? Congratulations. I thought it was never going to happen.
No, that's not what it is. As she and Nerith formally introduce themselves to each other, I try to calm myself enough to decide what to do. I'm not gonna make her jealous. She's my Fuck off. What the hell? That's not what I wanted to do. Let's see what happens if I try to make her jealous. Oh, I see. So now she's gonna get mad at me. Nerith is just a friend. A very close friend. Before I can touch her, however, Nerith halts me with a hard glare. She then very decisively slaps the back of my head.
Liar. As if you'd ever have a shot with me.
That was the right call. Then, with more friendliness than I even knew she was capable of, the warlock grins at Mika and introduces herself properly.
Useless over here is letting me stay for a few days until I figure out my living situation. He's not a bad guy when he's not trying to be macho and show off.
That's what you like. The two laugh, and I feel my face burn with embarrassment. This situation couldn't get possibly any worse. Could it?
Well, I suppose we can forgive him. He's such a dumb kid after all.
Whoa, wait. The dialogue here says just. She just said such. There's a huge difference in those words. Ouch. Feeling my chances with Mika-chan fly out the window, I'm tremendously relieved when she turns to go. Shutting the front door on herself, she throws her parting words over my head to Nerith, as if I'm not even standing there.
That's a cute shirt, by the way. I have one just like it hiding in my closet somewhere.
She leaves. The instant her footsteps retreat, Nerith punches me in the shoulder hard. What the hell?
Being manly isn't the same as being an ass, useless.
Yeah, I'm going back. I didn't want to be jealous. I didn't want to make her jealous anyways. There's nothing. She's not my cousin, though. I blurted out the words so suddenly that they both turned to stare at me. She came out of town to visit me, and I've been busy showing her around. She's really into cosplay. Mika's eyebrows rise so high on her forehead that they come dangerously close to jumping off her face completely. Her expression goes beyond disbelief. It looks like she's actually questioning my level of sanity.
Your cousin.
No. Her voice is deadpan. I gulp and nod frantically.
Your cousin, who I've never met or heard about in all the years we've known each other.
It's true. I'm from his mother's side, so we don't see each other much.
Nerith, you're a god. No one looks more surprised to hear Nerith speak than she does herself. I find that I'm gaping openly, so I shut my mouth before anyone notices.
Yeah, clearly I got all the looks and height in the family.
She caps this off with a forced chuckle, and Mika-chan finally cracks a friendly grin.
Oh, well, luckily I made too much food. It's nice to meet you.
Nerith.
Nerith?
Nerith, that's a real name. She's from Sweden! She's from Sweden! I find myself blurting out the lie, in desperate hope that she won't ask any awkward questions. Mika looks confused, but seems content to hand the tray over without fuss. She gives Nerith a suddenly bright look.
That's such a pretty shirt. I have the same one hiding in my closet somewhere.
I'll just take this into the kitchen, okay? Bye.
Bye. Taking the food in hand, the elf practically sprints out of the room, leaving me to deal with the remaining conversation on my own. Thanks for the food, Mika-chan. Sorry about my cousin's lack of... I trail off, distracted at how closely she's watching me. She seems to realize the same thing, and her cheeks redden once more. Her hand reaches out to close the front door on herself as she turns to go. As it creaks shut, she looks me directly in the eye.
I guess you don't have a girlfriend after all. That's too bad.
You're a liar. It's almost impossible to tell with that stupid door blocking half her face, but I'm almost positive I see her lips tilted up in a little smile. The door closes and I hear her steps retreat in the hall outside. I know I'm smiling like the biggest idiot in the world, and I can't bring myself to care, even when I enter the kitchen later to find that Nerith's already demolished most of Mika's cooking. No! I log into Celestial Crossing that night on a whim. I haven't played since Nerith's arrival for obvious reasons, so I'm not quite sure what to expect as the logo flashes briefly. Her character isn't on the login screen. With no trace of her left in game, the question of how to get back to her world seems even more daunting than before. I'll have to spend months building up a new character from scratch. I lament briefly over all the gear I spent so many months raiding for. I wonder if the developers would credit me all the gold I have in their inventory if I tell them the character somehow magically got out of their game. I snort at my own dry humor. Inspiration strikes me suddenly. Quickly, I dig out the badge I got for the upcoming convention and stare at it. I'd have to get Nerith one as well, but that shouldn't be too hard. A one-day pass for the day of the Celestial Crossing panel should be enough. I remember how excited I was to hear that the developers of the game itself would be there. Now my pulse is pounding with the knowledge that we might finally get a shot at getting some answers. After all, who could know better about the lore of the game than the developers themselves? I surge out of my seat and rush to the living room, where Nerith is busy putting the finishing touches on her armor. Great news! We're going to see the developers of your game. They should have some answers on how to get you home.
Developers?
Yeah, developers. Think of them as the high authority on magic from your world. If anyone should know anything, it's them. I'm liking the sound of this plan more and more. After weeks of nothing, it feels like I'm finally doing something to help our situation. Nerith, on the other hand, looks less than enthused.
If you say so, I guess. Better than nothing.
I've neglected to tell her the best part. Did I mention you can wear your armor? The elf's ears twitches, and her face breaks into a broad grin. She almost looks like her in-game self again.
Fuck yeah, let's do it!
Sweet. It's a couple of days before the con, and I'm starting to sweat. I mean, the plan is still the best shot we have at figuring out how to get Nerith back home, but it's definitely not what I would call foolproof. All I can do to try and offset the many, many potential pitfalls is make sure I have everything figured out on my end. Right now, that just means memorizing the panel time and location, and trying to work out what questions to ask them ahead of time. I'm researching the developers when Nerith's bored voice drawls from the living room.
Hey, useless! Your magic picture box stopped working. Come fix it.
Okay, Chainsmoker. I showed you how to use the remote control just this morning. Figure it out yourself. She comes stomping moodily into the room, stopping in the doorway and leaning against it with a surly pout.
You would have done it for me a week ago.
I would have. You scared the shit out of me a week ago. She snorts before tilting her head and squinting past me at this computer monitor I've been staring at all morning.
What are you even doing in here? Isn't that just a smaller picture box thing?
I'm trying to figure out what we'll say to the developers when we get into the panel. Getting you a ticket will be useless if I freeze up and draw a blank as soon as we get their attention. She doesn't even let me finish talking, instead rolling her eyes at my dull explanation and heading towards the balcony for some fresh air. Fine by me. I concentrate better without the extra noise anyways. I do a search for pictures of the developers, hoping to recognize them on sight and identify the ones that are most likely to have answers, when I hear the balcony door fly open again. Footsteps approach, and I look up in time to see Nerith blow into the room excitedly.
Yakisoba bread! Now!
She wants bread? Didn't I just...
And not from the regular store, either. It has to be from the big store.
Yeah, that's... I blink, completely nonplussed. Which store's the big store?
The big store, useless! The store that's made up of all the smaller stores.
She's so excited that she's not letting me finish any of my sentences. You mean the mall?
Yes! I need bread from the mall, right now!
She's grabbing my shoes before I can even form a coherent protest. Nerith, I don't have time to run out and buy you bread right now, especially not from the mall. The nearest one is within walking distance, but it's still a good 15-minute trek each way. Nerith lowers her brow and crosses her arms in a stance designed to be as intimidating as possible.
We can do this one of two ways. You can suck it up and go under your own power, or I can whip up a special spell.
This is where I stand up to her.
And if you happen to realize later that you forgot to wear pants, well...
Okay, I abide by her wishes. I jam my feet into my shoes with poor grace, grabbing the house keys from the table on the way. Just before I head out, though, Nerith stops me. My friend doesn't do much to faze her, though. And instead, she looks up at me with a bizarrely serious face.
Just take a breath and relax, okay?
This seems like an overreaction, but it's puzzling enough that I feel some of my anger drain away.
And, be yourself or whatever.
I blink at her, confused. The hell? Without a word, she shoves me out the door and closes it behind me. The last thing I see is her oddly embarrassed expression. Needless to say, I head for the mall, grumbling to myself the whole way. It takes a while for me to find the bread, and by the time I have it in hand, I've cooled down enough to wonder why Nerith thought it was so important for me to buy it here at this particular time. Her comments were irritatingly cryptic. Since I'm already out, I take a minute to glance around and spot my favorite video game store in the distance. A few seconds of browsing shouldn't mess up my plans for the day any more than they already are. I'm not even halfway there when I see Mika sitting at a table outside a nearby cafe. Honestly, I might have walked right by if the red eyes and wet cheeks hadn't grabbed my attention. I have her a step closer, unsure whether or not I should say hello. She looks really upset, and I'm not the best when it comes to complex social interactions. Yep, that's me. Of course, she chooses this precise moment to glance up and notice me standing there.
Hikaru-kun?
Whoa! Why oh why didn't I just greet her like a normal person instead of stopping to stare? I wave lamely, trying my best not to smile too wide, or do anything that might come across as even creepier than I already have. Luckily, she's too busy looking away to hide the tears. I pause, panicking a bit. Should I try and say something comforting? Or would it be better to pretend that she's just dabbing at her mouth, and not furtively using the napkin to wipe off her face instead? Before I can do more than approach the table, she's already looking at me with a slightly forced smile on her features.
Hey, I'm surprised to see you here. You don't hang out at the mall much, do you?
No, I don't. Not really.
Oh, well, do you want to walk around with me for a little while?
That's nice. Her smile dims as she looks so desperate for company that I nod without a second thought. She's nicely? I think it's kind of trashy. She's like wearing like short shorts. It's hard not to let my eyes wander, but I'm not depraved enough to ogle her while she's so obviously upset. We pass by a few stores, and her attention wanders to the different couples walking by. I gulp, realizing belatedly that the mall is such a popular date night destination, we probably look like a couple too. If the situation makes her uncomfortable, she doesn't show it, and after a few more steps, she finally speaks.
I guess there's no point hoping you didn't see me bawling my eyes out back there, huh?
You just looked like you were crying a little bit. I wouldn't have said bawling. She cracks a wry smile at that and looks at me with an expression that makes my heart lurch sickeningly.
You say that like my eyes aren't puffy and my nose isn't bright red right now.
I'm gonna try and comfort her. That isn't... Whatever. I need to stop talking, yeah? She raises an eyebrow at me before bursting into soft giggles.
Thanks, Hikaru-kun. I think.
She sticks her tongue out at me playfully, and I'm at least happy I managed to cheer her up a little bit.
Well, the reason I was crying is because I was on a date.
Ooh, I can't... I feel like someone hits the pause button on my life as my entire mood plummets upon hearing those 5 words. I mean, I'd always known she dated, but seeing evidence of it firsthand makes the fact so much more real.
And when I told him I didn't want to see him again after it was over.
She's not smiling anymore. In fact, she looks like she's fighting back tears again, and her voice is hoarse, but she eventually forces herself to go on.
Let's just say he wasn't very nice about it.
Yeah, what a jerk. Did he hurt you? Whoa. I don't know what I plan to do about it if she answers with an affirmative, but some deeply ingrained masculine part of me asks anyways, because I have to know. Thankfully, she shakes her head quickly.
No, nothing like that. He was just an asshole calling me a tease and a whore.
What? She wrings her hand slightly and sniffs back a few more tears.
Sorry, I know it's stupid to get so worked up about it.
No, it isn't. Her forced laugh comes out sounding more like a hiccup.
I mean, the only reason I went on this stupid date with him in the first place was because he kept asking, and I agreed so long ago that I couldn't put him off anymore. I tried to tell him I wasn't interested, but he insisted I'd already promised.
I'm not sure what my face is doing, but when she peeks up at me, she offers her final defense, shrugging helplessly.
I didn't know how to get out of it without being a bitch.
I want her to admit her love to me, but also, I'm gonna make her admit.
What do you mean?
My throat suddenly feels dry, and I don't know why I'm asking such a leading question. I mean, you obviously agreed to go out with him originally. What changed your mind? Her gaze skitters to the side, and she gives a casual shrug. Her cheeks look a little rosy, but that could be wishful thinking on my part.
I told you, he kept on asking. It felt rude not to at least go out for some coffee.
I can't help but notice this is not an answer to the question, and her avoidance is more interesting to me than I'd like to admit. Her eyes start up to meet mine for a second, and it's as if she can read my mind.
I guess I just realized that I had more options than I thought.
I feel my chest reinflate with some of the self-confidence I'd lost earlier, but I tamp down on it before I get carried away. Well, it sounds like you made the right choice anyways. You didn't have to be such a jerk about it.
I know.
We stop walking and she turns her body fully toward me. Something about her looks smaller and more fragile than usual. Her eyes seem huge as they look up at me through dark, wet lashes.
It hurt to hear him call me those things, especially since part of me feels like I did lead him on a bit. I shouldn't have said yes in the first place.
That's not leading somebody on. You can go on a date without following up or whatever.
It hurt even though I didn't really like him.
She sniffs again, and this time she can't hold back a few more tears. Her laugh comes out sounding self-deprecating and bitter. I immediately hate it, because sounds that ugly shouldn't be coming out of her.
That's pretty stupid, right?
Oh, God. Oh, fuck it. Let's be assertive. Something comes over me as I watch her sob over this loser, whose face I'd like to punch so badly it hurts. Okay, hello there. Before I even fully wrap my mind around what I'm doing, she's there in my arms and my head is spinning at the soft scent of her shampoo. Everything about her is soft, in fact. Her warmth seeps into me as I rub her back in small, soothing circles. It feels unbelievably satisfying to hold her like this and hear the way she... It feels unbelievably satisfying to hold her like this and hear the way her crying gradually tapers off. There's a gentle tugging at my back, and my heart gives a nervous spasm when I realize that her small hands are clutching in the fabric of my shirt. She returns the hug, but leans away far too soon, electing to wipe the moisture off her face with some embarrassment.
Sorry, I think your shirt's all wet now.
It's fine, and you're not stupid. She smiles up at me with real gratitude, and it feels amazingly empowering, like I could take on 5 Neriths and live to tell about it.
Walk me home?
Hell yeah. Her soft question is a surprise, but I don't mind it. This has been a day full of developments, after all. The way back is peppered with conversation. She asks what Nerith has been up to and laughs when I tell her a highly edited version of how she got me into the fight with our neighbor.
Why would she do that, though?
She's Nerith. She lives to make my life miserable.
Nothing like family, huh?
Yeah. She winks, and I notice that the change in topic has cheered her up immensely.
At the end of the day, though, I think you two really must care about each other a lot. You wouldn't be able to laugh about it like this if you didn't.
There's a thought. I switched the subject since I have no idea what to make of her analysis on my friendship with Nerith. Do you feel any better now?
Yeah.
Sweet.
In the past, I've always just gone out with guys who chase me, but most of them turn out to be insensitive, emotionless assholes.
She turns to face me with a small, knowing grin, and I nearly trip over my own feet.
I think I just need to reevaluate the kind of guys I date.
Boy, if you don't ask her out right now, you're a fucking retard. I tell myself firmly that we're almost back at the apartment. Humiliating myself by running into a sign or falling into a pothole is not an option.
By the way, are you ever going to tell me why you went all the way out to the mall to buy some yakisoba bread?
Nerith wanted it. I looked down at the bag of bread in my hand, somewhat dumbly. I'd forgotten the whole reason I'd left the house this morning. It was Nerith. She knew. Somehow she knew that Mika would be at the mall, and that I'd see her there. I think back to all the unsubtle comments that she's made about Mika and me over the past few weeks, and wonder if she's been plotting something like this from the beginning. Add that to the cryptic comments she made right before I left, and I find myself laughing out loud at the thought of her little matchmaking schemes. She's a big softie after all. I don't mean to say it out loud, but I just shake my head at Mika's understandably confused look. The bread's for her. It's pretty much all she eats. Her small nose wrinkles cutely.
That doesn't sound healthy.
It's not. I laugh and ask her about her life at the university just before we finally reach the apartments. She explains her area of study, industrial chemistry, and tells me a few funny stories about her teachers as we slowly climb the many stairs leading up to her floor. By some kind of unspoken but mutual understanding, we part at the precise halfway point between our homes. I can already hear some kind of loud noise coming from the direction of my apartment, but I ignore it. Nothing matters more than the fact that Mika is here, and she's looking at me like I'm more than just the weird neighbor who used to follow her around when we were kids.
Thanks, Hikaru-kun, for everything.
No problem. She self-consciously tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. I start to realize that this must be some nervous habit of hers.
I feel really lucky, actually. My date didn't work out, but I still had someone around to walk me home at the end of the night.
Her smile is shy and sincere as she takes a small step closer to me.
You should fill in for my dates more often.
Boy, just fucking ask her out. Yeah, I don't want to fill in. It's so hard to think with her stepping into my space and breathing the way she is. Why do I sound like a fucking Buffalo Bill? I hear words coming out of my mouth, but I don't have the presence of mind to stop them. Only fill in? If I hadn't already been aware of her breathing, I wouldn't have noticed it stutter to a stop. She's so close now. I measure the distance in my head like some kind of robot, trying to figure out how much or how little I'd have to bend in order to kiss that pretty mouth. She inhales and the distance between us shrinks even more.
Good night, Hikaru-kun.
Whoa, what? You're not going to accept? I'm embarrassed at how hard I'm breathing, but then she tilts her head with a flushed smile and quickly flounces back toward her apartment. The look she sends me as the door closes behind her is very promising. I don't know how long I stand there with a silly grin on my face, but when my toes start to go numb, I realize I've been gone a long time and Nerith is probably waiting for her bread. No, she isn't. The kitchen is a disaster when I step in, of course. I seriously doubt Nerith is capable of going an entire day without messing something up. Speaking of which, the dark elf is laid out on the living room sofa, fast asleep. The mystery noises I can hear all the way down the hall were apparently just the product of the TV being on and the volume almost at max. Sighing, I try to sum up some righteous anger at the warlock and come up empty. It's hard to get pissed off when everything in your shitty life feels right for once. Instead, I pick up the remote and set the volume on mute. Ironically, it's the total lack of noise that causes Nerith to wake up with her usual ladylike snort. Her bleary-looking eyes take a minute to focus on me, but when they do, she smirks.
How'd it go?
Purposely ignoring the question, I drop the bag of yakisoba bread on the floor next to her on the seat. On the floor next to her seat on the couch. Got what you wanted. She frowns at the evasion before looking down at the bread. I try not to burst laughing at the fact that she's forgotten what her excuse to get me out of the house even was. It takes a while, but she obviously figures it out and swiftly plucks one out of the bag. Fine, let her play it off like she isn't a romantic underneath all that bluster.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nerith. I don't bother to clarify what I'm thanking her for. I don't need to. We both already know. She gives me a short nod and a tiny smile before pulling her yakisoba bread out of its wrapper and nibbling on it. Soon the dark elf is happily watching TV, volume likely blasting through the whole building. I can't bring myself to care too much as I make my way back to my room and boot up the computer. I go to sleep that night in my own bed for the first time in weeks. Where did she sleep? Gathering Nerith's badge in time for the convention is a hassle and a half, but we manage it somehow. The look of utter amazement on her face when we walk in is even worth the exorbitant price. Almost.
Holy shit! Is that the Demogorgon just walking around?
Her eyes actually physically bug out of her head slightly.
And what is a Knight of Sparrowkeep doing calmly chatting him up? Those goody-goody shield-wearing twats give me a hard time.
What are you doing? Stop casting this magic. Nerith pauses with her fingers halfway through a spell weaving and curses loud enough to attract attention when the magic fizzles. She turns to glare at me before faltering at the expression on my face. Her angry retort comes out sounding more like a question.
Killing and looting?
You can't. No. Stop. Those are people in costumes. Remember when I explained what cosplayers were?
Oh, so these are real ones?
Yes.
So that means I won't get any XP for slaying them?
You will not gain any XP from going on a mass murdering spree, no.
Oh.
Her look of disappointment says it all, really. I take the homicidal elf with me toward the nearest information kiosk to pick up a map of the convention center. On the way, we're stopped several times by desperate Celestial Crossing fanboys who want to pose in pictures with Nerith. They fall all over themselves, complimenting her amazingly accurate and resourceful cosplay.
The next fool that comes up to us wanting to flash some bright-ass light in my eyes gets punched in the face, useless. Fair warning.
I note the tense set of her shoulders and how her glower has evolved into something that looks worryingly unstable. It's a complete turnaround from the wide-eyed awe she expressed earlier, and I tried to phrase my concern carefully. I didn't think it would bother you so much. You'd have to deal with worse at school, haven't you?
That was nothing like this.
A girl dressed as a dark elf comes barreling towards us and gushes over how natural Nerith's body paint looks compared to hers. It isn't until she asks what the warlock used to make her ears that the pieces click together in my head. The muscles in Nerith's arm suddenly flex as if she means to take a swing at the shorter girl, who by some miracle realizes that she might be in danger and stops talking abruptly. The girl shoots me a nervous look, especially when the real-life elf in front of her begins to tremble slightly. I think my friend here is just thirsty. We're gonna hunt down a vending machine. Excuse us. I take Nerith's arm and guide her toward the section of the building where I know the games panel is being held. I'm breathing slightly harder than usual by the time we reach the room, and turn to face her, fully expecting to have my head bitten off. Instead, I'm greeted by the most shocking thing I've seen since a half-naked elven warlock dropped in my lap. She's upset, and not in her usual rage-fueled way. Her eyes are shut tight, as if to desperately block everyone and everything else out. Her hands are even clutching over her ears in a gesture so disturbingly vulnerable that I hear myself talking to her in a low voice, the way one might speak to a cornered animal. Nerith, are you okay? This isn't just about the crowds, is it? Her eyes pop open and find mine immediately, looking angry and just a little bit frightened.
What the hell do you want me to say? That you were right, and my world has always been a stupid fucking illusion created by other useless people like you?
She spits the word "you" out like it's a curse, but her gaze isn't on me anymore. Instead, she's scowling up at a decorative banner from the game, taking up most of the wall behind us. Moodily, she crosses her arms in front of her and keeps staring over my shoulder. Yes, your entire life has been a lie.
I know that I don't fit into your world very well, and you've always been really aware of the fact that I don't belong here because of it. But to me, this just felt like another raid. A weird, mostly boring one, but seeing these idiots dressed up like archdemons and mages like it's nothing.
She shakes her head despondently, facial features turning sad.
Those clothes mean something in my world.
Yeah. Her eyes turn upward and she stares hard at the ceiling tiles over her head. It takes me a long minute to realize that Nerith, tough, badass Nerith, is trying not to cry.
Hikaru.
Whoa.
Am I real?
You're real as fuck. Her voice is small, smaller than I've ever heard it, and for a moment I'm not sure what to say. I have a feeling that this is a very important question to Nerith, and I have to take my time thinking of an answer. Fucking yeah, you're real. I hesitate, because the truth is, I honestly don't know, and I don't feel at all qualified to be helping her through this existential crisis of hers. There's no straightforward answer, so I decide to go with pure gut instinct. You're living and breathing and standing right next to me, so as far as I'm concerned, you're real as fuck. Screw what anybody else says. I offer her a weak smile, hoping my words didn't make an already bad situation worse. Nerith looks at me with a mixture of annoyance and affection that only she could ever pull off. She's spared having to voice a reply as the line finally starts moving ahead of us, and we're let into the panel room. We take seats as far up front as possible, which isn't that far. The panel turns out to be more of an extended Q&A session than anything else. I wait for my chance, and when the game devs open up the discussion to their audience, my hand shoots into the air before anyone else's. Naturally, I'm ignored in favor of a cute blonde cosplaying as a succubus. The rest of the panel goes by like this. I raise my hand, but I'm still just one person out of 100. I shoot a pointed look over at Nerith, hoping she can throw a little bit of her magic around, but she isn't paying much attention. She's slouched in her chair, staring at the back of the head of the guy in front of her, and looking pretty perturbed. Her concerns from earlier are clearly still bothering her. supposed to do? I mean, it's not really important that she goes back, because she's kind of cool now. I lower my arm and gently poke her in the side. You okay? Her face immediately twists into a snarl, and she opens her mouth to unleash a torrent of verbal abuse, before pausing, obviously thinking better of it. She looks up at the ceiling again for a moment, and I feel like shit for saying anything at all. She's clearly not okay.
I'll be fine once we talk to these idiots and get out of here.
Her voice is strained but quiet. I rack my brain for something else to say, but she shoots me a look out of the corner of her eye that says something along the lines of drop it or else. I nod silently, waiting for the next call of question. Yeah. I don't like that response. I'm cheating. I sigh, deciding to keep my hand in the air. Because let's be honest, I suck at talking to people, and Nerith is an insanely difficult person to talk to on a good day. I don't have a clue how to comfort a depressed, angst-filled version of her. The odds of me screwing up and saying something to make the situation worse are high. It's much more productive of me to stay focused on the task at hand anyway. Or so I tell myself as I try to ignore the visibly upset elf sitting beside me for the next hour. 60 agonizing minutes later, the Q&A comes to an end. Fuck. I lower my arm in defeat, trying to shake some life back into my numb fingers. What the hell do we do now? I fully expect Nerith to make some sassy comment on how I can't get anything done, but instead she simply stretches her nose in irritation before getting out of her seat and making a beeline for the backstage exit. It's all I can do to scramble after her. We reach the edge of the stage, fighting our way through a crowd of people moving in the opposite direction before we're stopped by security. We're literally only a few feet away from the developers, but Nerith is evidently done with all the tomfoolery. Her hands fly the motions of a now familiar spell. She murmurs a low incantation, and this time I can actually taste the electricity in the air. It's like licking a battery, not that I've ever done that. The developers and security guards all freeze what they're doing, eyes glazed over. We're able to walk right up to them without further trouble, and I glance around nervously to make sure everyone else is out of earshot. We had a question for you that...
Is it possible for a gateway to open between this world and the world of the...
She cuts herself off, struggling to say the word, and I take pity on her. Game? The devs are obviously not so far out of it that they don't immediately start laughing at us.
What are you guys talking about? There's no such... I mean, you guys know this shit isn't real, right?
This guy is so dead. Nerith stiffens, and even I flinch at the harsh words. As if the elf wasn't already questioning her existence. This was the verbal equivalent of pushing a burn victim into a hot bath. A very hot bath. She turns on her heel and marches away, leaving me to deal with the brainwashed devs on my own. Luckily, the spell doesn't wear off immediately. Sadly, however, I now have to worry about finishing up this discussion quickly, since there's no telling what kind of trouble a distressed elven warlock can get up to at a gaming convention. There's magic within the game itself that opens doors to different dimensions, so is it really such a dumb question? Getting a high enough level magic user, and they can even get to different planes of existence, right? So in actuality, did one of you stumble onto a gap in time and space and turn it into a game? Maybe. My voice fades out how stupid I sound. This is the king of exotic ideas, the grand poobah of embarrassing moments. And please answer without laughing. Obediently, the developing team holds in its mirth, and they shake their heads one by one.
No way, kid. Celestial Crossing is something we made up. It's completely fictional.
My shoulders slump, and I play my riskiest card out of desperation. Hopefully they don't remember this conversation when the spell wears off. Okay, well, is there anything else you can think of that might explain how a character from the game could theoretically get over into the real world? With amused expressions, the devs look at each other and shrug. I wilt in disappointment until one of them appears to entertain the idea for a second longer than the others.
Well, if we're talking about keeping this within the realm of fantasy...
Yes?
And fiction.
Yes? I impatiently try to draw the words out of him faster, wanting to go check on Nerith, but also needing Something, anything to show for our efforts.
Well,
tonight.
our magic system in the game is pretty complex, but in theory, any spell can be reversed under similar conditions.
Okay.
That's why shield spells and spell breaches take the same number of turns and are learned under the same school of magic.
The lead developer shrugs and smiles, and I realize he's making all of this up on the spot. Still, it does make sense, and it's more information than we had. Got it. And thanks for answering my question. Big fan, by the way.
Yeah, we kind of figured.
I turned to go, feeling hopeful that maybe this whole enterprise wasn't a complete waste of time. I'm in such a hurry to find Nerith that I almost miss their parting words as I duck toward the exit.
If you think of the portal between worlds as a door, then it probably opens both ways, kid. That's the best answer I can come up with without a fresh coffee.
I mull over this imagery with more serious than it probably deserves before mentally storing it away for later. First, I need to make sure Nerith didn't go on some kind of rampage. I scan the hallways outside the panel room, but the area is thick with gamers and nerds as far as the eye can see. Finally, I decide to make my way over to the information kiosk, hoping that Nerith might remember in return if she gets lost. I only make it about halfway when I nearly collide with the woman herself.
Oh, good, I found you. Look what I got.
What'd you get? Yakisoba bread. She proceeds to shove several large convenience store bags full of yakisoba bread into my arms. The hell?
Yeah, there was this stupid contest or something, and they really loved my armor. Because really, who wouldn't? And then they offered me some useless prize.
A useless prize?
It was some of that flimsy paper currency you're always whining about. 60,000 yen or something like that.
That's a lot of money. You walked away from it?
Of course not. I just waved my fingers, threw a little magic at them.
I'm so mad. She waves one of the bags in front of my face in a tempting manner, smirking with victory.
You're welcome.
Nerith spends the next few minutes trying to get a response out of me, I think. I'm not sure what happens next, to be honest, as I more or less pass out at the thought of Nerith turning down free money. Free money that I could have used to fix all the shit she broke in my house. Still, at least she doesn't seem depressed anymore, triumphantly nibbling on one of her prizes. Once I'm finally recovered enough to rejoin the row of the living, I lead us out of the crowded convention center and toward the bus stop where we catch the last one heading back to the apartments. We pay our fare and share a seat toward the back. I spend the ride home thinking about what the developers said. If it was all just random stuff they made up on the spot, but I try to consider it from the viewpoint that everything about the past few weeks has just been batshit insane. Why stop suspending my disbelief now? With that in mind, the doorway in between Nerith's world and mine was a dream the first time. I mean, I was asleep at the time and woke up with her suddenly there, but I had slept every single night since then and nothing bad had happened. Maybe I have to dream her away for it to actually work? Maybe, but who can control what they dream about? I glance over at Nerith, who was already fast asleep, leaning her head against the window. Would she laugh in my face if I told her what I was thinking about, or just smack the back of my head and tell me to stop wasting my time thinking of nonsense? Hell, what if it was just nonsense? And if it was, would having Nerith around for the foreseeable future really be that awful? I'm almost surprised to realize that, no, it really wouldn't be that bad. Nerith's a pain in the ass for sure, but I've always wanted to change things around in my life, be tougher, be stronger as a person, and she's the only person who could force me to do that. Mostly because she's a hard ass, but also because I think of her as a friend, crazy as it sounds, even in my head. And as much as she's helped me, I feel like I've helped her too. A week ago, it wouldn't have been possible for her to show any kind of weakness around me. Today, though, she reached out. She asked me if she was real, and my answer actually mattered to her. I can't help wanting more of that, to watch her become more grounded and able to rely on me, to see that I'm someone she can trust to have her back the way she's had mine. So no, it wouldn't be horrible to have my friend around for a little longer. A yawn rises up out of my chest suddenly. All of this thinking reminds me that we've had a long day. I'm pretty exhausted, physically and mentally. I settle in for a short nap until we reach the apartment, resting my head against the back of my seat. The bus lists to one side as we make a sharp turn, and my head lolls onto Nerith's shoulder. She grunts, but doesn't wake up to punch me in the face, so I stay there. It's a much comfier position to sleep in than trying to keep my neck craned upward. As I drift off, I reason that I'll be able to process the day's events much more easily when I wake up anyways. Something feels off about this. I'm very obviously dreaming, but I've never been aware that I'm dreaming without waking up before. So I guess it's only when I'm extremely tired. There's nothing but darkness around me. Darkness and a dim outline of something that's in the distance. When no other choice presents itself, I make my way toward the shape ahead. As I get closer, it splits in two, and I can soon make out the form of a woman standing next to a door.
About time you showed up, useless.
I'd recognize that voice in my sleep. I mean, obviously, because I just recognized it. I finally reach the door, and this person standing next to it is indeed Nerith. She grins.
Well, I didn't think you'd be able to unfuck yourself long enough to do it, but you managed to impress me, hero. You found the doorway.
Oh. I look at her with my brow furrowed and realize I don't want her to go. Still, it's not like she'd leave her entire world behind to hang out in mine. I'd rather chew sand than ask her to do that. Instead, I shoot for nonchalance. So you're heading back home, then? She laughs loudly. Her whole face brightens up and it's the happiest I've ever seen the elf.
No need to give me that kicked puppy look.
Her expression settles into its usual arrogant smirk, and she even gives me a playful punch in the shoulder.
If I leave, who's going to keep your head out of your ass?
She's not leaving?
You think I'd let all of that self-confidence I drilled into you just disintegrate the minute I'm gone? Fuck that. I'm just here to make sure we close this stupid door for good so nothing else can get through.
Wow. What about your life, your whole world?
You mean my fake life in a pretend world? Why go back when I'm a real person here?
That's good logic. I'm dumbfounded that my words had such an impact on her. I gape for a minute before she snaps her fingers in front of my eyes impatiently.
Since you're here, care to do the honors?
She gestures towards the door, which is starting to glow around the edges, almost like it's beckoning us through. Creeped out, I shut it tight and throw the latch that appears to be on the outside. The moment it locks, I feel a light smack on the top of my head and jolt awake.
We're home, useless. Get your fat head off me.
Despite her less than gentle wake-up, she's smiling. I grin back and we make our way off the bus. The bus stop is otherwise pretty much deserted, except for a figure making its way towards us in the dark. It's Mika! Boom! I lead the way forward only to bump almost literally into Mika.
Hikaru, Nerith-chan, fancy meeting you two here.
Yeah, fancy that. She laughs a bit, giving Nerith a small wave before looking up at me. I might be imagining it, but she seems to be fidgeting more than usual, playing with the hem of her skirt and pushing strands of hair out of her face as she talks.
Since you're here, I was wondering if you could grab the dishes I lent you guys the other day when I brought food.
I open my mouth, but Nerith abruptly speaks over me.
No problem, I'll run ahead and grab them.
Yeah, that makes sense. She gives me a very pointed look as I dig in my pocket for the key to give her. The look clearly says, "Don't fuck this up." I try to nod my understanding at her discreetly, and she smiles. Smirks, punching my shoulder once before turning toward the apartment in the dark.
Does she always do that?
Yes, pretty much. Mika and I walk toward the building a few steps, before my hand shoots out, almost of its own accord, to stop her. Mika-chan, wait. She turns to face me, and her face is illuminated in the light of a nearby street lamp. She's beautiful. Her eyes are wide and warm, and there's definitely affection there. Is there also a glimmer of attraction? It's hard to tell, and I'm no expert on women. But after everything else I've been through, this finally feels like something I can take a chance on. I take a deep breath and call on all of the self-confidence I've gathered from going through such a life-changing ordeal. Mika-chan, there's something I really need to tell you. She says nothing. Instead, her cheeks light up softly with a blush, and her smile turns shy and hopeful. Ending number 1, home. Oh, that's it? I don't get to see what happens. I don't get to see her reaction. Creative Commons backgrounds. Royalty-free music. Makes sense. That's a lot of music. I guess that's it. I guess I should go back and find all of the endings.